You are now listening to The Strange and the Weird with your host, Stefanos Saganakis. Today, our show is going to be on horror and how they're implemented in video games. Unfortunately, tonight we have no co-host, but we will be talking for the entire hour. Strange fact of the day, there is actually a breed of goat that faints once they get scared. Alright guys, welcome to The Strange and the Weird with your host, Stefanos Saganakis. As you guys just heard, that was the theme song from Lavender Town in Pokemon. It's a very creepy song, very, very creepy song, very disturbing song that probably haunted a lot of our childhoods, especially if you played Pokemon Yellow or Pokemon Red or Blue. It was a song that gave us nightmares. I know it probably did give me nightmares, and still does once in a while, especially since I started playing it again recently. Anyways, as you guys know, I'm going to be talking about horror and video games. And I guess I should start off with Lavender Town since I started with that first. Everyone knows Pokemon is a kid's game. It's a nice little fun game, you know. It has all that fun stuff. You go around, you catch Pokemon, you do battles, and you make money when you do the battles. But the first generation was absolutely horrific and creepy. Now you look back at it, there are Pokemon out there that are just absolutely weird, and there are a lot of creepy things about the Pokemon generations that we have. If you guys actually have anything to add on to this topic about the Pokemon, specifically Lavender Town, call in at 386-822-8770, and I'll make sure to get you on the air. But going off what I was saying, the first generation was by far the creepiest generation. Everyone knows the story about Cubone, and Cubone is a Pokemon. It was nicknamed the Lonely Pokemon because it wore the skull of its mother. And that was the Pokemon you had to deal with when you were in Lavender Town. Lavender Town was haunted by a ghost. Specifically, the Pokemon Cemetery was haunted by a ghost of the Cubone's mother, the Marowak. And you actually had to go into this creepy, creepy place, be haunted by these spirits you could not tell what they were, and had to go through a lot of psychic mediums, or seekers, I think they were called, that wanted to battle you for no good reason whatsoever. And if you had only normal type Pokemon, it was horrible because you couldn't touch a ghost. So you'd walk through, and some of these people would be like, "Oh, I want to suck your blood," and we're just like, wait, what's going on here? This is a kid's game. You want to suck my blood?" Or someone's yelling, "Die, die, 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 die," just over and over, die. And then you beat them, and then they sort of get out of their trance. But there's just one that was really creepy. I did say it. It was the one that says, "I want to suck your blood." Oh, God. That was the creepiest level in a game I had played at that time. It's absolutely horrifying. And not only that, listen to the music one more time. I just played it for you a second ago. But just listen to how creepy this is. When you're in the Pokemon Center, you're listening to this. When you're in when you're in anyone's house, you are listening to this song. When there's that nice old man, Mr. Fuji, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm taking care of Pokemon here," this is the song you're listening to. And I think it's brilliant because it has that undertone of creepiness, and it's just an 8-bit song. It's absolutely marvelous at how creepy they get such a simple song. It's just so marvelous about that. And you walk through town, and you go up to the cemetery, and you meet all these creepy people, and that's not even the entire thing of Lavender Town. Before Lavender Town, you had gone to this cruise ship, and you fought your rival, Gary, or as some of you might know him as Blue. And when you fought him, he decides he's going to bring out his Raticate, and you beat his Raticate. But he goes back he's in Lavender Town, and he's on the second floor of the cemetery. And he goes, "Why are you here? You don't look like any of your Pokemon died," which is implying that his Pokemon was killed. And guess which Pokemon was not in his group at that time? It was the Raticate you'd battled before. The game is literally hinting at you that you, yourself as the player, killed his Pokemon, and that he is at the Lavender Spirit Tower. I keep forgetting what it's called. Pokemon Cemetery Tower, because you kill this Pokemon. And that's pretty dark for a child's game. I mean, you go through this game, and there you're just catching your Pokemon, having a fun time, and bam, you killed him. You killed someone else's dear and near Pokemon that they raised from, the bottom of their hearts. And not only that, you're seeing these ghosts, and things are getting creepy. And one of my favorite things is there's a kid. You talk to the kid. Kid, and he goes to you, do you believe in ghosts? And you can say yes or no. At this point, you can say whatever you want. I said yes at my first time, so I never got to see this until recently. And he goes, if you say no, he goes, oh, then what's that white hand on you? It must be imaginary. And that freaks you out because you don't see a white hand. You do not see a white hand on you when you're playing the game, and it's freaky, and you freak out. When you watch the new anime that came out, though, the Pokemon Origins anime, you actually see the white hand on the guy's shoulder. It's very faint, but you can see it. And it brings together everything. It brings together the spirits. It brings together the entire creepiness of Lavender Town. And I believe it's brilliant because they made such a 2D and basic town so scary that it scared a lot of the players and made them think, maybe I shouldn't exactly play this right now. I'll come back later. And I know that I had faced that several times while playing video games. So that's the first thing that came to my mind when I thought about creepy video games. It was Lavender Town. And I think that's the most obvious thing. But it's not the only time in the Pokemon franchise that there's actually been something creepy. When we talk about the Pokemon franchise, we go right now to X and Y, which is the latest installment of the game. And when you're going down, I believe this is in Luminous City. I haven't played it, but I saw the video. When you go down in the mart at Luminous City, you go to the bottom, and right behind you, it goes black, the screen goes black, it goes light. Then there's a woman. The screen goes black, and then it goes light, and there's the woman again. And she's trying to walk, but her legs don't move. They just sort of go in like a split formation, and she's just sort of like gliding over there. And she goes, no, you're not the one. And you chase her, but there's only a wall. And I don't think that's ever resolved in the game, but there have been many mentions of spirits and creepy things in the Pokemon franchise, especially with the Pokemon. Now there's a Pokemon that's a tree. And that tree is said to be made by the souls of lost children who end up becoming Pokemon in the forest. So the children get lost in the forest, sort of like a Slender Man myth. Here we go. Children get lost in the forest, they die, and their souls become Pokemon and inhabit a tree. And then the evolved form actually leads the kids deeper into the forest so that they could die and become a tree. That's very, very dark, especially for a kid's game, as I'm saying. And that is Pokemon. That is what amazes me about Pokemon. They put such a dark thing into their basic game. It's a nice game, and it's so lighthearted until you get to that one point in each game where there's something that just freaks you the heck out, and you're like, what just happened? And those are the things I think of off the top of my head when I think of creepy video games. But we could also go to creepy video games and sort of how they... actually, I'll talk about that in the second half, how they implement the creepiness. But let's talk about another scary game everyone knows about. Slender Man and SCP Containment Breach. I think you've all heard of those. SCP Containment Breach is basically the Weeping Angels, but with this naked guy who looks absolutely weird. It's a great game. I highly recommend it if you want a good scare. And you have a blink factor in the game. So whenever you blink or you look away from this guy, he comes to you closer and closer, faster and faster after a little while. And there actually hasn't been an end made for the game just yet. I know there have been consoles that make you go to the end, but there isn't exactly an end to the game per se. Which I love that. Because you could go around and you could get everything open. You could do all the doors. You could get to the very end where it says exit and you can't get out. There's this... and it only gets worse in the SCP franchise because you're not alone with this one creature. If it was just this one creature, I think you'd be able to do it a lot easier. But it's not. There's a whole bunch of creatures. This is SCP-147 or something. Hold on. Actually, I have it right here. Let me see which SCP this is. This is SCP-173, and there's actually, I believe there are 1,000 SCPs. Some of them are actually really good and beneficial to you. Some of them are sentient and will help you out if you help them out, and some of them just screw with you a lot. But for example, here let me read you this one. SCP-173, the sculpture. It's the main antagonist of the game. The statue, constructed from concrete and rebar, with a spray-painted face. It can move at high speeds and snap the player's neck. However, it cannot move while in direct line of sight. That spells the Weeping Angels. If you watch Doctor Who, that is the Weeping Angels, and I think they got that blatantly off of Doctor Who, to tell you the truth. But it's creepy as heck, especially how they spray-painted it and how they characterized the character. He looks a lot like a Teletubby, to tell you the truth. So they take something that could possibly look cute and adorable and screw it up, make it into this giant horror-reeling creature that just makes you want to run away. And I think that is awesome. But there are other SCPs. For example, a humanoid creature that chases down and kills the player if they view any part of their face. That is SCP-096. There's a lot of them. Or, for example, SCP-8, the zombie plague. That's sort of obvious. It affects the player with a virus that slowly turns them into a zombie. It gets worse and worse and worse. It's a great game, and you meet all these SCPs. I think I'm reading about 20 SCPs right here, right now. SCP-789J. A toilet which can be found in the washroom. Upon walking to it, it will threaten to eat the player's butt. Only acts as comic relief. I think that's the best one so far. That is definitely the best one so far. I like that one. There's a lot of other machines. Actually, the SCPs aren't just living. They're machines as well. So, when you think about it, they actually take a lot of different things into it. And the SCP franchise only gets cooler when you look a little deeper into it, and you notice that they have a lot more games, and they're based off of other myths. For example, let's go with SCP-173, the Weeping Angel, basically. If you watch Doctor Who, they say that kids played red light, green light, specifically for surviving the Weeping Angels. Think about that for a second. Red light, green light was a game where you looked at your friends, and you're like, all right, green light, and you turned around. Red light, whoever moved was out. Basically, that is what the Weeping Angels do. And when you think about it and how it applies to real world, it gets freakier. Because where did red light, green light come from? Can anyone actually answer that? Where did red light, green light come from, the game? No one knows where that came from. Maybe it did come from some strange concrete creature being time-locked because we're moving around and looking at it, and it can't move. And maybe that's why the Weeping Angels in SCP-173 are mysteries to us, because they're not moving. They might be right next to us, and they're not moving. Maybe the Statue of Liberty, Doctor Who reference, is a weeping angel just waiting to be woken up. We don't know, you know? And that's how it gets to be culturally relevant when you think about it in a way that there is some creepy things that we do, like red light, green light, that relate to this. And that's really, really cool. And also similar, going off from SCP to another game, another just normal creepy game, a jump scare game like SCP, Slender Man. We've talked about it before here on the show. And what I like most about these creatures, they have no face. Why is it that a creature with no face is oftentimes scarier than a creature with a face? You'll go on you can watch a show, and when you're able to identify a bad guy, for example, let's go James Bond, and you know it's Scaramanga because he has 3 nipples, for example, right? You know it's him, you know his face, and you're just like, yep, he is the bad guy. But when you look at Slender Man and he has no eyes, no mouth, no ears, no nose, no nothing, you can't really identify him. I mean, you can identify him as a guy with no eyes, no ears, etc. But it sort of takes away that humanity that's left in the villain, I think, when you're playing it. And you look at it, just there's nothingness. And I think humans fear that a lot. They just fear nothingness. We might say, "Oh, I really want to do nothing today. I really want to have nothing to do. I don't want to do my finals. I want nothing to do with them." And if you're doing your final studying, good luck, guys. But when we really think about nothing, how much does it fear you? How much does it scare you to think about nothing? Think about this. Look around your room right now. Imagine it just an empty room. Your chair's gone. Your beds are gone. Your computer that you're listening to is gone. All you hear right now is my voice telling you to imagine all this stuff, and nothing else is in your room. Imagine that for 1 second. How much does that terrify you? Because when you look around and you know something should be there, you know that this guy should have eyes. You know that it's not logical for him not to have eyes, but they're not there. Think about how much that terrifies you. Just for 1 second, give it some real thought. Because I think it terrifies most people to think about true nothingness. There's actually a room that was made to dampen sound, right? Soundproof room. It's actually at -9 decibels. That's how quiet this room is. That is nothing to hear. That is literally nothing to hear. It's so quiet that literally you could hear your blood flowing through your veins, which is amazing when you think about it. You're like, oh, cool, I could hear my blood flowing from my veins, yada, yada, yada. I'm a big, tough guy. No one's lasted in that room for more than 45 seconds without going crazy. And they have gotten, like, delusions. They started hearing things that didn't exist. They started seeing things that didn't exist. They couldn't balance right. That room is the best equivalence to what we have to nothingness. And people go literally insane inside that room. So just think about it for 1 second. When you see something hunting you down in a video game like Slender or SCP, and it has no face, it has no features you can recognize, it has nothing that you could relate to, it's just a nothingness of sorts. Imagine how terrifying that is. And I think that is a great aspect a lot of horror games have, especially when they go right into something like that faceless creature. Unlike when you have in some movies, let me give an example. Nightmare on Elm Street, which you clearly could identify as, this is Freddy Krueger. He has giant, you can see his face. He knows exactly what it is. He has 2 eyes. He just looks scarred up. It looks disgusting, don't get me wrong, and that's freaky in its own way. But I don't think it has that same fear that nothingness has. And that nothingness has such a subconscious fear that it gets to us little by little, scaring us from the inside and not really jumping us, but just getting us inside enough to make us double take, to make us triple take, and to see what it is that really is there, if there is anything there. And that's what I think is that's one thing I love about Slender Man. Besides the fact it chases you around in the woods by yourself with a flashlight. And there's actually a lot of games now that have to do with flashlights. Speaking about flashlights, if you guys, I'll talk about this game specifically more, Alan Wake, later. It's probably my favorite video game next to Tales of Vesperia, but it's a great game, and it has a lot of scary moments because it is made as a psychological thriller, which I think it should have been labeled a horror, to tell you the truth. It is a great horror game, and it scares the pants off you. And if you want to think about it like this, I think horror games is a game that could get you scared of the dark again. That's what I think a horror game is. If it gets you scared of the dark again, it's done the job of a horror game. Or if a movie or a TV show gets you scared of the dark again, it's done the job of a horror game. I mean, game, TV show, movie, etc. Those jump scares are great. Those jump scares are really great. I think that's what the whole thing is about. I think that's why the flashlight's so effective, because you only have just a little bit of room, and once you look in your room, for example, and you have just a flashlight, you don't see everything else. You just see little tidbits in front of you, and maybe a little bit from your peripheries, and that's barely anything, which is really freaky when you think about it, and you have so little view. But speaking of jump scares, I know I said speaking of flashlights a second ago. We're going to go on to that after the break. But speaking of jump scares, I have a funny story to tell you guys. Hold on. Do you guys remember the game Dino Crisis from the PlayStation 1? Well, if you do, I played that a long time ago. And it's basically Jurassic Park gone wrong on an island in a secret oh, wait, that's already Jurassic Park. Anyways, it's basically Jurassic Park, but with no visitors. You're basically a Secret Service type group, and you go in, or FBI type group, and you go in to see what are these guys doing with the bloody dinosaurs? Or what are they researching, you know? And you go in, you complete a few quests here and there, and I remember my first time getting really far in the game, which wasn't far at all. I didn't have a memory card, so I replayed the game every single time to get anywhere, because we didn't have a memory card. But I got through, I think, passage you had to put through a door. You had to put in the password for a door, and you went through. And I was with my father and my sister, and I was simply playing and doing my best. And I had my pistol. I was like, yeah, I'm going to kill any velociraptor that comes. I'd already killed like 20 of them. And this is the most corny scare ever. They literally do a cutscene where you're walking out the door, and you're the lady walking out the door. And miles away from you, there's a velociraptor that just screeches like, grr, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And I got scared out of my pants from that. I don't know how. I jumped up in the air. I ran to the PlayStation. I turned it off. Aren't I brilliant? That was the first I ever got in the game, and I turned it off, never finding out what happened after that. I'm just absolutely brilliant. It was probably the most embarrassing time I played a game, and also probably one of the most fun times I played a game, because it was such a simple scare, such a simple jump scare, and I got scared shitless. I'm not going to deny that. It was a lot of fun, though. Anyways, I'm going to be switching off to music right now. If you would like to call in to bring in your word, anything about Lavender Town, Dino Crisis, Slender Man, SCP, or horror in video games in general, make sure to call me at 386-822-8770. Once again, that is 386-822-8770. I'll be back right after the break. That was Mothership by All Over the Place, a local ska band in Ohio that came down to Florida once, and I got their cassette because my car only plays cassettes. I know. Anyways, so I was talking before about a game, Alan Wake. If you guys want to call in, by the way, once again, the number is 386-822-8770. But I was talking about a game called Alan Wake, and Alan Wake is a survival horror game that did not get the attention it deserved back in, 2011? It was a great, great game by Remedy, I think it was? By Remedy Entertainments, yeah. And it was awesome. I loved it. It really held up to its name of survival horror. And when you're thinking about survival horror, you obviously think about Resident Evil. And Resident Evil is survival horror, but I can't say the latest ones have been. You sort of look at Resident Evil 4. That's survival horror. You have things coming at you. You don't understand what's going on. And you have 5 bullets. That's it. You know what I'm saying? When you go to Resident Evil 5, you go in with Chris, I believe, and it's just machine guns and ultimate weapons to start with, you know? So that's not a survival horror game, at least not to me. You're just fighting zombies at that point, and you're just like, boom, boom, boom. Ah, you're dead. I have a machine gun. Boom, 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 boom. It's basically like saying Plants vs. Zombies is a survival horror game, which it's a survival game, but definitely not horror. But there are certain elements in each game that make a survival horror, and Alan Wake has all those elements. When we talk about survival horror, once again, we talk about limited ammunition, like in Resident Evil 4. You have 5 bullets and you're done, sort of thing. In Alan Wake, if you have 60 bullets for your pistol, you have not shot anyone, which means you just simply ran through everything, which is possible. You could simply just shine your flashlight on people, or light a flare or two, and boom, you're gone. You just sort of walk through everyone. But then you have no flare, and you run out of batteries for your flashlight. So that's not the best thing to do, you know? And what's even better is you're not only limited on ammo for your bullets, you're limited on ammo for your flashlight. You could carry a max of, I think it was 12 batteries. And if you got lithium batteries, they lasted longer. If you didn't get lithium batteries, well, then you had crappy batteries, and they lasted half the time, maybe. And you would walk around in a town. This is a populated town, or a populated hotel. And for some reason, there'd simply just be this thing called the darkness. That's all it was. It was just called the darkness. It had no name other than the darkness. Until you met the main antagonist, which her name always escapes me. Elizabeth something? No. Anyways. So, you're walking around a popular town. You're not walking around some deserted town where there's no one. No, this is a town that there has living people in it. This is a town that there's 1 minute ago, you were with the sheriff and you were with an FBI agent who just got ripped out of the police jailhouse and killed by the darkness. You know that because you saw it happen. You didn't see him die, you just saw him get taken out. But I think that's also a brilliant part of the horror. You don't see the actual killing. You just see the person getting taken out and you hear a scream. That's it. That happened in Psycho, the movie. You never saw an entry wound when that guy, that shot, the famous shower scene, dun, 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 you never saw a stab wound. You never saw anything besides the fact that his arm went down and she's like, I got hit. But you never saw a stab wound. You never saw any blood, nothing. Just a stab wound and whatever went down the drain. That's horror, I think. That's slasher horror at least, but that's what Alan Wake provides. It provides that horror that leaves you to your imagination. How did this guy die? Was he just ripped apart, or was he, ended quickly, neck snapped, Weeping Angels type thing? What happened to him, And that's another thing I think that a horror game should have, and that is provided by Alan Wake. And Alan Wake is a great example of that. But then I think we have to go to storyline. And Alan Wake has an amazing storyline, which literally Alan Wake writes himself. It's a long story, but eventually he's captured by this woman, sort of trapped actually, by the darkness, and forced to write a transcript, or a manuscript, actually, my bad, a manuscript of a book. And he is literally writing out his entire adventure in the video game. And he's sort of like a author, but he couldn't write because he had a writing block. But he was forced to write out the video game in a way that actually make the darkness survive and the darkness thrive by becoming all powerful, sort of like a I don't know, sort of like an evil spirit going throughout capturing everyone's soul, zombie apocalypse type thing, I guess. Because people were good at zombies anyways, the enemies. And you were writing your own story. That was the creepy part. You wrote your own pain. You basically set yourself up to die in so many situations in the game. And that's what's brilliant about it. Your character is writing his own story, his own death sequences and his own life sequences. And he doesn't even know it. He has to go and collect these pages one by one. And if you don't get a page, you don't know what's happening next. And sometimes you get it after it happens. For example, when you're fighting the first guy, I think his name is Nate or something, you get a paper at an inn that says, oh, he came wielding an axe, saying, no pay, no stay, something like that, right? 5 minutes later, you're in a wood chipper area with a whole bunch of lumber and a whole bunch of wood chippers. And you're walking through, and you hear someone scraping something on concrete behind you. Someone saying, no pay, no stay, no pay, no stay. Or whatever, lodgings extra, whatever. And bam, there's Nate. He was dead a second ago, but no, now he's right there in front of your face, and he can move the speed of light, basically. So you're screwed if you have to fight him. And he's got that axe, classic murder weapon, the axe. And he's ready to kill you. Which is pretty scary. Especially because he's invulnerable at this point. This is another thing the game does. It makes the enemies scary. They're not scary because they look freaky. No, they look like normal human beings. They're scary because you can't kill them unless you have a light. And what I mean by this is not if you just shine a light on them, like, haha, I'm shining a light on you. I'm at Nintendo DS light, it's on you. No, this is a concentrated light. Like when you concentrate your flashlight and you spin the head a bit so that it concentrates, that's what you have to shine on the guy. You don't shine the flashlight on him. If you shine the flashlight on him, he'll cover his eyes. He'll sort of walk a lot slower. But if you concentrate the light on him, that's when he starts literally burning up. And I sort of guess the darkness starts getting away from him to the point that you could actually break through the darkness and shoot him or run away if you want to. And that's what's really scary. They made the enemies scary. Sort of like how they did in Dead Space, but in Dead Space they were just scary as in scary looking and scary as in jump scares. You know, boom, I'm right there, I'm going to scare you. Or I'm this weird spider crawling looking thing and I'm going to scare you because I'm going to jump on your face and start eating you. And that's another way to scare people because spiders are a phobia. But I still think that is more of a jumper, not true horror personally, but it's a great scary game. Dead Space is a great scary game. But going back to Alan Wake, the enemies were scary because you couldn't kill them without relying on something else. And that something else, namely being the flashlight. And you, once again, had very, very limited ammo for that. You had 12 batteries. If you ran out, you had to let it recharge, which it took God knows how long to recharge. Or you had to replace the batteries. And when you got better and better flashlights, it took 3 batteries at a time. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, great, I'm already down 1/4 the supply of batteries. You know, but it'd be a strong flashlight, just you'd be surrounded by enemies. But one thing I also like about this is the game doesn't scare you with the music. The music's not scary. Here, take a look at this one right here. Give me 1 second. Most of the music in this game is something along the lines of this. 80s classic rock, basically. There's a group in the game called the Old Gods of Asgard. And they're like an in-game group, and they sound like a legit group. But I'm sorry, this doesn't change. They sound like a legit group, but they sing songs that seem pretty cool. For example, Children of the Elder God, this one. Probably my favorite sequence in the game, where your writing manager, comes to save your butt, basically, does nothing. And there you are on a stage made by the Old Gods of Asgard, with fireworks and everything going off. Everything's going absolutely crazy. And these guys are rushing the stage. And you have to survive with a shotgun and bullets from your revolver, and maybe if you were lucky you had 2 or 3 bullets left over in one gun. Or if you were unlucky, you're just, you're done, because there's so many enemies at this point. And even with all the fireworks taking down their shields automatically, there was just a swarm, and that's the best part about it. The darkness was so strong that it took down every single bit of light you could possibly imagine. It took down helicopters just by being the darkness. It took down the light, and you had no air support when you're supposed to have air support. And it just takes away everything. It's just the darkness. That's what I love about this game, the darkness. And the music does not contribute. The music does not contribute to the fear. It contributes to I'm doing a really good, badass job. I'm beating my enemies, It does not do anything with the fear. And yet there's so much fear in this game that when I stopped playing this game, because I finished it, I did not like the dark. I still don't like the dark. This is one of the reasons. The Vashon Narada are the second reason. But as you guys know, I have a slight fear of the dark, like almost everyone does. It's scary. That game catalyzed a bit of my fear for the dark, and so did the Vashon Narada from Doctor Who. Because if you think about it like this, you can't hurt the darkness. No, you can't. There's no way. No matter how much light you shine, there's always going to be darkness. If you shine a light in front of you, there's darkness behind you. If you shine a light behind you, there's darkness in front of you. If you shine a light on top of you, there's darkness under you. There's darkness absolutely everywhere, no matter how much light you have, and it's impossible not to have darkness. And we don't know what's in the darkness. And once a game like Alan Wake brings out the fact that there's nothing that you could tell that's in the darkness and you cannot affect it, it's amazing because you're scared out of your wits. You don't know what to do after the game is done. Is this real? Is this not real? Type of thing that your mind just gets a little paranoid about. Like when you're watching Insidious and you're like, is actual prediction, I don't want to go sleep now. I don't want to go to another world. No. Same thing, but with the dark. Think about it like this. You sleep in the dark. And when you sleep in the dark and you have no idea what's out there, it's scary. Excuse me. It's scary. And it's amazing, I think, that they were able to employ the darkness in such a scary way in such a simple game. I just got a comment now saying that it sounds like Stephen King's Misery. Excuse me. And yeah, this game was based heavily off of Stephen King. And Stephen King was a great writer for horror. So if you guys want to check him out, if you haven't already. He made, I'll be doing a segment on him one day, probably. Probably either horror in books or horror movies games, in movies episode. I'll be doing a horror in video games episode in the future as well again. But, yeah, it's very Stephen King-esque. That's what the game is like. It's not that jump scare. No, it's that scare that's gonna get you thinking throughout the night and get you scared to go to sleep. And that's the type of scary I like. Well, there actually was one. My favorite thing about this game, at the very end, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. Let me get the song up for you one now. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this song. It's called Space Oddity by David Bowie. Most of you should have heard of it, but this game ended in probably the most amazing way. The writer's looking out on his typewriter now, and he says, it's a lake. It's not a lake. It's an ocean. Because he was literally trapped at the bottom of a lake by the darkness at the very end of the game. And then this plays. And I think this is the scariest song of the game. Because it's symbolizing the fact that Alan Wake, the main character, has absolutely no control over what's happening. He's in a spaceship, let's say the cabin under the lake, and he can't do anything. He's just trapped there. Everything's gone out of control, and he just wants to tell his wife that he loves her. And he saved his wife, which is really good, because he quote unquote defeated the darkness. But he never freed himself so that he could be with his wife, which is sort of sad. And then you have this song playing, which is saying, hey, you ain't got control over anything. You think you have control? You don't have anything. And I love that, because in this song he's saying that he's lost control of the spaceship, and his spaceship knows where it's going. And that is by far the absolute scariest song in the entire game because of that reason. And I love it. That David Bowie has a scary song, if you think about it. That's sort of creepy. How could that be a scary song? But when you put it in the right context, it is absolutely horrifying. That he had your character, even though you beat the game, you won, you defeated the darkness, you had no control, and you were still a slave to it, being forced to write more so that you could somehow unenslave yourself. And that's deep, and it's scary thinking about it like that. What if what you do on a daily basis is just something like that? What if you're just trying to escape some evil routine that's shaping your life in a negative way, and you can't escape this because some darkness or some bad thought or something is keeping you locked there? You are done. You have no control over what you can do. Only thing is this negativity or this darkness, this whatever you want to call it, is there controlling your life in this most subliminal ways that you will never notice it, and it is there and you have no control. And that's the end of Alan Wake. And he acknowledges that fact. He goes, yeah, you know what? This is not a lake. This is an ocean. And he acknowledges the fact he's probably not going to win just randomly. He has to fight, and he has to make more books to write to save himself. And then the sequel, which is not much of a horror game. I'm sorry if you like the sequel. The sequel was not that good. It was a $15 DLC, which wasn't good at all. It was entertaining, but it wasn't good as a horror game. His wife thinks he's dead. His manager's managing the rock band now that you heard a second ago. Old Gods of Asgard. But his wife thinks he's dead, and that's pretty a shame. Like, Alan saved his wife, and his wife will never know it. But his manager, who's with the rock band now, is like, no. He's alive. He's just waiting to come out. He's with the darkness. And his wife's like, oh, I don't know what the darkness is. That's a load of baloney. You know, you and Alan fought all the time. Which they did. They fought once in a while. But still, the fact that he is a literal slave to darkness and he is watching his own wife's movie is like sort of mockery from the darkness. And it gets a lot worse from that point. Alan eventually gets a doppelganger from actually the light side, the Thomas Zane, who's symbolizing the light and the way to go. But the doppelganger is infected once again by the darkness, and you're sort of screwed because his name is Mr. Scratch, and his name's not Mr. Scratch. His name is Mr. That type of scratch. You know, when you listen to video or a radio broadcast, it's a sound. That's his name. And mostly that's the identity fear. You have no identity for this guy. He looks and acts like Alan Wake, except for the fact that he wants to kill and have fun. He wants to use his fame and money to enjoy himself, quote unquote. And that's sort of scary in its own way when you have your own doppelganger controlled by the darkness that was made by the light. Does that make sense? Something made by good forces, controlled by the dark. I don't know. This one game, Alan Wake, has so much you go in depth to. And I think I've just spent maybe 20 minutes talking about it, and I still have so much more I could pull out. It's just amazing, I think, that this game exists, and it really should have gotten a lot more credit for a horror game. No, you're not going to jump out of your seats and go, oh my god, that was so scary. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to go to bed that night after you play it for an hour or two, and you're going to go, I don't want to turn off the lights. That's the type of horror game it is, and that is brilliant. That is my favorite type of horror game, when you just don't want to turn the lights and you want to sleep with the lights on, but you know you can't. So you turn them off, and you crawl into your bed, and you sort of snuggle up in that little centipede formation. You're just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fall asleep. Yeah, that's basically what this game does to you. And that's why I love it. It looks like we'll be done in 7 minutes, so if anyone wants to call in at 386-822-8770. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm coughing a little bit. If you have anything you want to add to the conversation, for example, Lavender Town. We talked about Lavender Town before, which is the Pokemon yellow creepy village. Or if you want to talk about anything we've talked about, SCP, Containment Breach, Alan Wake, Dead Space, etc., please call in at 386-822-8770, and I'll make sure to put you on the air. All right, let's see. All right, I think we can end this up with a few monsters from different games. And I think you guys all heard of this. This is a new game called Outlast. Outlast is a game very similar to it's a survival horror game, and it's much more of a survival horror game than Resident Evil 4 or Alan Wake because you can't fight. All you have is a video camcorder and the convenient locker for you to hide in when something's chasing you. So it's a pattern, yeah, but it's really a survival horror game. You're going to this place to sort of take a look at it and say, oh, hey, look at this. There's some corruption going on here. I'm going to record the corruption, and I'm going to leave and, make $1 million as a reporter, which every reporter wants to do. And you look around, and there's nothing there. It's a normal insane asylum, I guess. No, not normal. It's It's an insane asylum with anarchy. But the main guy, who's actually a little bit sane, not you, this antagonist, is a doctor. This is one of the antagonists, actually, not the only one. One of them is a doctor, and he genetically modifies, cuts up, and rebuilds a human being, sort of a little bit like Frankenstein. And the best part about him is when you first meet him, he looks at you, he puts you on a chair, says, "Hey, let's just talk business." Boom, cuts off your finger. You know? And you go throughout the rest of the game, which is another half the game, without a finger or two. But what's scary about this game is that this guy took human beings and mutated them in a way that made them almost unrecognizable. To the fact they were just some giant brutes. Blah, blah, blah. I'm a tank type guy. And you couldn't fight him. You literally had to run away and find some place to hide before he came and ripped your arm out of your shoulder. And you saw that. You saw your arm get ripped out of your shoulder. Boop! Bye-bye arm. Or you saw him rip your head right off your neck, which I'm imagining that doesn't hurt because, you know. But still. This game is a true survival horror in the fact that you can't fight back and all you can do is survive by hiding. And you can hide under beds, which I don't see why they can't just look under the freaking grates and see you. It works out for the player, but not so much the NPCs. But you can hide under beds, you can hide in closets, you could hide in cupboards, etc. But the game really scares you once this guy comes along, this big old mutated guy. You can't do anything. Or, I guess you could call it sort of like, this part sort of like Silent Hill, but the doctor comes with a giant pair of scissors that he used to cut off your fingers. He's just like, oh, hey, look, that still has my blood on it. Great. So I guess that's a lot more of a jump scare game, but it's a very good game in how it does great with the lighting. You don't have a flashlight in this game. You have a UV infrared camera. Conveniently so infrared. Now you can see everything in the darkness. And you can see everything inside the lens of the camera, but you start losing battery. Once again, you have that battery replenishing problem. You gotta replenish all those batteries, and you have 12 batteries in that game too. But when you have the camera normal, it doesn't do any battery things, so that's good. So always wear the camera, and then eventually your camera gets cracked, and you can't see much out of it. So that game's a really good horror game, and it really implements the horror really well. And I like it a lot. Anyways, guys, it's about time to get off. I need to go do my lab report. So, for anyone who is going through final stresses right now, stressing about their next class, remember, tomorrow is another day. Tonight, you still have a few hours. You have the time to study. Take it nice and slow. Relax. Don't cram the day before. I'm going to be a hypocrite in that situation. But I'm also going to be studying before. I'll be doing both cramming and studying, but make sure to get done, relax, and listen. If you guys want something in the background, make sure to listen to my YouTube channel. Selfless self-promoting. I'm not shameless self-promoting. I'm not gonna deny it. I listen to my YouTube channel and all the shows there. We have shows from the Samhain special. We have other shows that are just everyday shows that I do, like this one, for example, that I'll be posting up within the week. I still got to post up the show we did 2 weeks ago. You can find that one at, let me get the channel name. Just search up Stefanos Saganakis. Let me try that. Saganakis. Search up Stefanos Saganakis, and I'll be the first one on the list. In fact, the entire page will be me, with the first video being the Strange and Weird Samhain special. And after that, episodes 4, 3, and 2. Make sure to listen into the YouTube channel. And make sure to follow us on Facebook. www.facebook.com/The Strange and the Weird. The R is not there. So it's not The Strange. It's The Strange and the Weird. And I got to find a way to change that. I can't change that unless I contact Facebook. So for now, it's /The Strange and the Weird. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for listening. Good night. And have fun in the dark.